Well, hey, how is everyone this evening? I hope you can hear me. I hope I'm not having audio issues. If I am, well, you're not hearing me, so I'm sure someone will pop up in a minute and say, "We can't hear you, Bill." Anyway, I'm good to go now. I'm the Dungeon Delver, and I'm glad you're here. I'm glad we're all here. Loud and clear. Thank you, Boxcars. Yes. And I'm guessing the opening credits music was there. Was that good? Was that nice and loud and clear? Also, I hope. You guys will let me know about that. Excellent, Taka. Excellent. But anyway, so a video dropped today. I hope you guys saw it. It was, of course, the first Tales of Tabletop Triumph. Now, I'll tell you guys, I got enough stuff for at least a couple more videos, and then I got enough user submissions that if I scraped them together, I could have one short to medium length video. Excellent. Thank you all. Thank you all very much. But if you have a tale of tabletop triumph, if you guys have a story that you want to share, a positive gaming experience, something fun that happened at your table, whether it's something that kind of extended beyond the game, like we made friends, I got married to this person and it's been bliss ever since. Please, by all means, inject it into my veins. Send it. There's a link to our Discord. You can join us on Discord. It's in the description. You can email it to me, bsylvie@gmail.com. And I'll type it up, assuming that it can be spoken in relatively YouTube friendly terms. If your favorite, no kidding, there I was, tabletop triumph is that everybody decided not to play D&D and instead you played Strip Berserker. Well, maybe we can't do that. But I see some new faces out there. Lord Koss, Nighthawk, Boxcar Billy. That's awesome. Because guess what, guys? We have had a whole bunch new subscriptions on YouTube. Welcome. I hope you guys enjoy what we do here. I think you'll find that we have a lot of fun. I shared a post up yesterday. I now have my studio lights exactly as I want them. I hope I'm not too washed out, that I don't look too terrible, because I can adjust them if need be. I'm just this pale, indoorsy gamer nerd. I'm a real grognard because I have long white hair, and that's not just me bragging. That's James from Neckbeardia who gave me that title, and I wear it with pride. This was going to be the year. It's like, I'm going to get my hair cut. Nah, I'll keep it long. So yeah, that's some good positive stuff that's going on. Hello, Anchorite Cat. Good morning to you. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah. Wave of mutilation. Trying to hide behind an alias. I see you there. I got you, Bill. Yeah. So I now have, if you go look on YouTube, don't do it now, but if you go look in the YouTube community, I now have diffuser boxes on my studio lights on the advice of one of you kind people out there. I was asking about, what do I do about the horrible harsh lights in here? And they're like, diffuser boxes, my dude. So now I have diffuser boxes on my studio lights and I look good. I like that, Damien. I like that. Well, it was your user icon, Anchorite Cat, I may call you Wave for just eternally now, but anyway. Speaking of videos, like I said, there's the first episode of Tales of Tabletop Triumph. Please go check it out. Tell me what you think. Tell me about, you know, is the audio okay? Is it too long? Is it too short? Whatever. I mean, the video took me a while to get down pat, but I think the video is solid. It's very good. I recorded a video earlier today, but I decided to just go ahead and just I kind of wanted to just get this off my chest and just get it out there. You know, I just want to get it out there. Gen X Geek, greetings. Good to see you. Welcome. Watched my new video earlier. I thought it was a great story and a good length time-wise. Yeah, that's what I'm going for. I'd like them to get about 10 minutes. That's like the sweet spot, but I couldn't really drag that out without getting a lot of extraneous stuff in there. Guys, we got to face an uncomfortable truth here. There is no 11th hour happening that is going to save the 2000 to 2022, 2023, just inside 2023 OGL. It's not going to happen. WotC have basically put up what is they consider their final version. I really hope I can get a legally minded person on the show. I hope I can get Ty Beard to come on the show and talk us all off a ledge. But right now, guys, okay, it's not looking good, but how bad do you want to self-publish? Let me ask you that. How bad do you want to self-publish your own stuff? If you want to self-publish it bad enough that you still want hit points and armor class and stuff like that, that you and I both know is not copyrightable. It's not copyrightable. It's not trademarkable. It's not patentable. If you're willing to go out there and publish your stuff, you can do it, and you can say, screw the OGL. All 5 of my AD&D Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, not Adventures Dark and Deep, not Adventures Dangerous and Deadly, not Amazing Deadly Delves, AD&D equals Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. All 5 of my modules were written for AD&D in mind. I put them up in PDF and I released them onto the world. And there are 5 of them. There's DD1, DD2, and then there's WGH 2, 3, 4, and 5. 2, 3, 4, 5, and so that'd be 6. Sorry, 6 of them. But I put them out there fully cognizant that Wizards of the Coast could tell me, stop it. And then I would have to take them off the internet, and that would be the end of it. They never did. And so since about 2005, 2006, you've been able to get 6 PDFs of modules I've written. You'll note I started with WGH2. WGH1 may happen someday. But here's the thing. This Wizards of the Coast strikes me as being a lot less prone to saying stop and a lot more prone to saying, we'll see you in court. Just jumping past the double dog dare. Or they might not. They might not. They might just come back. Wow, 25 people on. Welcome, everybody. If you're just stopping by and you're not subscribed, please click the subscribe button, click the bell icon for notifications, and continue to chat and give us some comments in the video underneath if you're watching this later. Jimmy Invictus, greeting. So that's your third and most dangerous option. Continue to ignore OGL 1.0A or even 1.0. Do not sign the OGL, the completely misnamed OGL. It is the CGL. It is the closed gaming license. It is not open. Okay. And I'm going to get to that in just a second. That's not just an opinion. That is an objective fact. Russell Flowers, good to see you. Do not sign the CGL. Do not observe the OGL. Do not observe OGL 1.0. And just release your stuff to the public. If you release it for free, odds are that... Look, I'm not a lawyer. I could be wrong about this. Because honestly, the way they're behaving right now, the 9,000 words in the CGL are so bad that it is like TSR from 1994 has returned. It's as if the Pharaohs had returned. The route you can do, because again, I'm not a lawyer, is to just put your stuff out there, whether you release it for free or you ask for money for it, and just hope that they don't pay attention to you. Hope that they think that your $2,000-$3,000 worth of sales overall are not worth their time and effort and the bad press it would get them. I don't think at this point they care about bad press. I think if I started printing and selling those 6 modules that you guys can get for free and just started dancing around saying, F you, I won't do what you tell me, I think they would make an example out of me. So I said I was going to say why I feel like this is not an open license. There is a legalese philosophical minefield in the verbiage of saying open source software. There are people who think, for example, that Linux, as released by Linus Torvalds, is not open source. And they won't use it. It's not open enough because people can still publish stuff and make money on it, and that's not open. You can release closed source packages for Linux that people have to buy and pay for. And companies have done it with games. It's very brief and it's very rare, but I remember there were a few games that you could actually like go into CompUSA and buy a copy of and run on Linux. So me saying Linux is open source, don't at me, don't send me your hate mail saying I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about the broadest definition when I say Linux is open source. Linux is open source You can make a stripped down version of Linux that will run on the circuitry that is inside my computer mouse. You can make a massive bloated desktop version of Linux that supports gaming cards and gaming video cards and a range of x86 motherboards and processors, and you know, run Wine on it and play commercial video games and so on and etc. T-shirt historian, good to see you, my friend. Hey, go subscribe to T-shirt historian's YouTube page. Do that. Everyone, please do that. Subscribe to his webpage. You got me over 1,500 subs. I'm at like 1515 or 1516 now or something. You can get him over 1,000 to where he can start making YouTube work for him. So please subscribe to T-shirted Historian's YouTube channel. He's got good geeky content over there. So let's get back to the software example. So if we broadly view the OGL as the GPL that Linux functions under, what Wizards of the Coast has introduced is as different from that as Windows is from Linux, developing for Windows. And it's worse. Okay, I can get the DirectX toolkit and write a game and release it for free for Windows, and I don't owe any obeisance to Microsoft. But if I start using a lot of Microsoft properties, they may kind of look askance. But the point is, if I need to hook into the core of the operating system, I can't. I can use high-level libraries, but I'm not going to get the source code unless I pay Microsoft a ton of money. But over on Linux, I can do whatever I want. Hell, I could release a program that is Linux in its entirety. That's the difference. That's the difference between the CGL and the OGL. It is a closed license. It is not open. Let me state that. That is an incontrovertible objective fact. It is a closed license. It is not open. Everything you do is subject to monitor, seizure, and by participating in it, forfeiture on your part to Wizards of the Coast. That is a closed license. That is completely closed. That is just like saying you want to develop something that runs on and requires the hooks into the operating system of Windows versus you want to develop something for free to run on Linux. There is no Linux Incorporated that you are beholden to. You do not have to call up Linus Torvalds or email his office and beg them for permission to do what you want, and then worry that Linus Torvalds is going to seize what you have created and sell it. Microsoft have done that time and again. Extend, embrace, exterminate. That is the difference. The alleged OGL 1.1 is a CGL. It is a closed gaming license. I would even call it a CGZ or CGS, closed gaming seizure, because they are going to seize anything you put in there. It's that bad. And if you sign off on it, and if you allow your things to be dragged into it, well, bad things could happen. You could wake up one morning and find your custom class, your custom spells, your artwork, your writing, your campaign world, your adventure, your source book, your fiction taken away from you by Wizards of the Coast for no recompense if you sign off on it. It's bad, guys. It is the worst. Your alternatives are to go to a different gaming system that also has an open license. There are a few. Stick to the OGL 1.0A and hope for the best. Or go completely off the reservation and just keep publishing your stuff. I cannot legally advise you in any way. I'm not a lawyer. But that's where we're at, okay? It's Monday. WotC has had 4 days, because this started leaking last week. WotC has had 4 days to do any kind of a backpedal. You know, this is the kind of thing that if I were in WotC's position, I would say, look, attorneys, we're paying you guys overtime. We're paying you crunch money. Let's get you in on the weekend. PR people, you're coming in too. All right, we're going to put some lipstick on this pig and we're going to try and make this less onerous. They're not. It is 5:32 in Renton, Washington. They're not going to release a press statement and say, we've heard you. We've heard your concerns. OGL 1.12 will address many of these, and we don't want to be the bad guys here. It hasn't happened because it's not going to happen. They've made their decision. They have made their decision, and they voted against you. Now, there's one other thing I want to address before we get to some fun times. A lot of people are leaving D&D behind because of this, and that's awesome. That's fine. That's great. And people have asked me, hey, you gonna maybe slide on over to BRP? You're gonna become more Castles and Crusade focused? Even a few misguided folks are like, you're gonna start focusing on Osric now? Osric is released under the OGL. I don't think if that gets pulled up, then T-shirted, that's a good point, and I will come back to that. I will come back to that in just a second. In fact, I'm going to put it up on the screen so I don't forget. Let me say, this is a little bit more philosophical. This is a lot more subjective than objective, and I have been speaking objectively. The legal ramifications of this belong to Wizards of the Coast, as is true of all of my classic AD&D books here, and the modules and the Dragon magazines. They did not create those. They do not curate those. Well, I guess, actually, yes, that's a bad use of the term curate. They do still curate them on Drive-Thru and on DM's Guild. They are not their creations. They did nothing to earn the accolades and praise that these products have from you. If you love classic Dungeons and Dragons, and folks, Brother Sylvie's here to tell you, classic Dungeons and Dragons is a big umbrella. I know some of you guys started out like your first D&D was 3rd edition, okay? I'm not here to edition more, and I don't want to, and I'm not gonna. Classic D&D doesn't belong to them. It belongs to you, and it belongs to me. This 6th edition, whatever they're doing, turn and walk away from it. Don't bother with it. Don't play it. Don't support it. Don't cheer it on. Absolutely walk away from it. But if you hear Bill Sylvie saying, I continue to play Dungeons and Dragons, I continue to play Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, there is a vast, vast gulf in mindset and play style between what Wizards is about to drop and classic Dungeons and Dragons. Don't be afraid to say you still love Dungeons and Dragons. Just make that clarification. Make that clarification and don't let it get you down. I love Dungeons and Dragons. All right? I hate Wizards of the Coast. But I love Dungeons and Dragons. So, I think we've cleared the air on where I stand vis-a-vis what I mean when I say I'm not leaving D&D behind. Nighthawk, that's awesome. You talking about 74? Oh, that sound. Mobius wants to know what that sound was. That was actually a plastic baggie full of plastic miniatures that fell off a shelf. I don't know why it chose right now. Like the cat didn't brush up against it or anything. It just slipped off a shelf. Okay, so I want to give what T-shirted historian said my consideration here. Even if WotC were to reveal that they had reconsidered and were dropping the whole thing, it's too late. They've already did the damage and people are bailing on them. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. This was one of the greatest PR blunders I have ever seen. I posted a meme up today. And if you go and you look on the if you go and look in the community section, as I was trying to think of YouTube, you can see it. I posted it on Twitter. I posted it on Facebook, but it's the Fred meme from Scooby-Doo. Let's see who's really behind this. And I've got Wizards of the Coast logo where the bad guy's head with a mask should be, and he pulls it back, and there's Games Workshop. Okay. This is just that bad. This is just that bad of Wizards of the Coast. And no, they can't roll this back. All right. They can't fix this. I mean, anyone here who remembers when the GSL dropped? What a years long. That was like a 5 or 6 year long nightmare. When did 4E drop? What was that? 2007, 2008? And it really, they didn't start getting goodwill back until they started they started re-releasing first edition AD&D, and then they came back in with 2E reprints and even 3.5 edition reprints, books that had only been out of print for like 4 or 5 years. Because at the same time, they proclaimed, hey, we found pirated stuff of all of our classic books, so we're going to shut down sales of all of our classic books in PDF, which 2008, thank you, Boxcars. And it was 2014 that they announced. So it was 4 years and 4 years of hostility from the community. So that's in a nutshell, guys. That's it. That's what I have to say about it. I have stated before, I am working on a book with Tracy Lesh. If you don't know who Tracy is, grab yourself a PDF of original D&D anywhere. Get it from anywhere. Note the tonal shift between when I've said to go find Wizards of the Coast PDFs and that statement. But go get yourself a copy of Supplement to Blackmore, and you see Tracy's art start showing up in those. Tracy created the visual design of the Mind Flayer. He is an extremely talented artist. We've had him on the show a bunch. We're not changing direction. Now, we may be going off a cliff. This may be like Thelma and Louise. Or we might just be cruising up the highway. We'll see. So that's not changing. I signed an agreement to write 3 adventures for someone who is doing a massive campaign world. He's now having to change things. But I'm still pressing ahead with what I'm doing for him. So that's that. That's where we are. So anyway, do you guys want to read some Murphy's Rules? Yeah, it's we did a deep dive over a few episodes of the show into Volume 1, Issue 1 of Dragon Magazine. Dungeon Minister this is my kids got me this. I rather like it. It says I'm not just a dad, I'm an incredible dad, and it's a picture of the Incredible Hulk. So at the risk of some folks tuning out, we're going to look at Murphy's Rules. Now, we looked at issue 1 of Dragon Mechs. I never understood why magazines had volumes. You know, is that to like to designate year? But there were other just like there were other RPGs that sprang up when TSR showed how fertile the field was. There were other game publications put out by those other companies. And one of those was Steve Jackson Games, the space gamer / fantasy gamer. And the magazines themselves, because I have seen PDFs of them. I've seen some physical copies of them. The magazines themselves could actually get pretty propeller-headed. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but they would tend to focus a lot on like game design philosophy. But there was also good fiction and scenarios. Battlesuit, which is like the tiniest element of the Ogre family of games. Ogre, Shockwave, which is GEV. I think there was one that was just tank combat. But yeah, they released Battlesuit as an entire game in one issue of the Space Gamer. Well, when they would mail these out, they would put silly cartoons on the covers, or they would put silly cartoons in the magazine. And they compiled this in 1982 or 83 into a single volume called Murphy's Rules. Most of their cartoons spoofed little foibles of game companies, little rules inconsistencies that on paper seemed not that bad, but when you extrapolated them out, like, oh, in this game, the population of your planet will grow by this much every year. Okay, that makes sense. Well, no, it only makes sense if like every female on the planet is pregnant with 16 children all at once. Things like that. And they would send it up, including Steve Jackson Games' own stuff. Well, eventually, do I have a physical copy handy? No, I don't. Not one that I can easily dig out. Eventually, they published all of it in a single volume, which I bought and I love, and I now have the PDF of, and I'm going to share that with you guys. I'm going to share some of it with you guys. So we're gonna take a look at some of this. Hop over here and share, and add to stream. So there we go. So there's the cover, nice and bright and cartoony. You guys are getting full color today, and it's got a few. We've talked about these, like for example, not to mention performing the minute waltz. In Steve Jackson Games' Car Wars, it is possible for a driver in the space of 6 seconds to accelerate from 0 to 90 miles an hour, perform as many as 25 driving maneuvers safely, and fire on 3 successive targets long enough to receive a sustained fire 2-hit bonus on each, all the while maintaining a steady stream of conversation with his allies. And then we've got a cartoon there, which the driver holding a cup of tea saying, goodness, 4:25:06 already, while his grim-faced gunner blazes away. And I have seen some of these. Here's one a little on point for tonight if you are a college football aficionado. Attention, Vince Lombardi. In Hero Games Champions, an ordinary baby can throw a football 80 meters. This is because in Champions, if something weighs under a certain amount and is aerodynamic for throwing, you get range, like bonuses to its range. And a baby, an infant, would have a strength of, I think, 3. And this is a system where you can have literally like strength of up to 40. But even though it's such a low strength, as per the rules, the baby can do that. And like I said, they're not afraid of spoofing themselves. Oh, here's a good one. It's just a flesh wound. In Chaosium's Rune Quest, cutting off both arms will kill a character with Con 20, but not a character with Con 5. I've got to look that rule up. That sounds too good to be true. Again, some of them are extrapolations out, like, well, logically a DM's going to say, yeah, no, both your arms have been cut off and you're dead. The Few, the Proud, the Dead, and Necromancer by Steve Jackson Games, a player who orders his troops to unalive often becomes more powerful. Yes, I have to say unalive. So Murphy's Rules and other strange stuff from Space Gamer, compiled by Steve Jackson. Again, the man wasn't afraid to make fun of himself. So there's, oh my gosh, 88. So I was wrong. This was not 83. This was all the way up to 88. But there's different artists, and who you like just comes down to you know, your taste in art. I like the Ben Sargent issues myself. And then there's other strange stuff which we can look at. The first Murphy's Rules, reprinted below, appeared in November 1981. It seemed like a good idea at the time. Come to think of it, I guess it really was a good idea. It soon became our most talked about feature. The original idea was to lampoon some of the sillier rules of the games we all love. It soon went beyond that, with features like games that should never be played. But the basic idea remained to find game rules that failed the reality check and have some fun. We knew perfectly well that there were often good, solid playability reasons for the rules we gigged. That wasn't the point. This was for fun, and if we could get a good cartoon out of a rule, we charged mercilessly ahead, even if it was on one of our own games. Our first Murphy's artist was Richard Mather. His punked-out paladins and befuddled astronauts set the pattern for the series. After 9 issues, Richard gave up Murphy's, and the feature disappeared from the pages of Space Gamer for several issues. Then we got Sargent. Ben Sargent is the Pulitzer Prize-winning editorial cartoonist for the Austin American Statesman. He's also a wargamer. The hand that draws skulking, demented politicos was perfect for Murphy's, and Ben was a lot of fun to work with. All good things must come to an end eventually. Ben had to drop the series due to other commitments. Our third and final artist was Michael von Glahn, who took over with issue 71. Michael drew 6 Murphys before the magazine was sold to DTI in late 1985. And I promise I'll stop with the preamble and we'll get to the funny soon. Murphy's drew a lot of reaction. At every convention, people would come up to us to suggest new ones, argue about old ones, or just tell us to keep running the feature. Most of the companies took it in the spirit of which it was intended. One publisher put a blow-up of his Murphy's gig on his table at Origins. Then again, one got so angry he called us and canceled his advertising. Thus, the balance of the universe is maintained. So let's dive in, and I see not too many people want to. Well, a few people didn't care to hear it, but guys, I can't be negative and bitch about this situation constantly. There are people with better brain. I mean, I've told you what my plans are. I'm not a lawyer. I can't advise you legally, and it's not like I have the ticker under glass that chucks out news headlines or a teletype or whatever from Wizards of the Coast. So I promise this wasn't some clickbait prank to get you guys here to look at stuff. So let's kind of zoom in so you guys can see the text too. And I'm not gonna focus on all these. Some of them are literally just like, that ain't funny. And this is not a great PDF, so it does tend to blur out a little bit, but Murphy's Rules. Better than bows and arrows. Spacecraft were armed with machine guns in the first edition of Triplanetary. The rules explain that beam weapons were not feasible. And then we have a Imperial Star Destroyer with a 50 cal on the front there. Pity the Russians. The Russian player never wins a game of Firefight. It was designed as an instruction tool for the army. The scenarios are deliberately unbalanced to teach the players about tactics. Nomad Gods includes a number of interesting counters whose use is not explained. That's a good game design trick there. Just include some stuff in there that you're not going to tell the players what they are or what they do. Crawling the Catacombs. Here we go, our first Dungeons and Dragons spoof. The indoor movement rate in Dungeons and Dragons is 12 feet a minute. Well, hey, if you're checking for traps, right? All right. So you're kind of getting it, right? You're getting the flavor for it. And this is a game, some of these games we've talked about recently. Short-range weapons. In Raid on Iran, it is impossible for most units to fire across the street. And then, we have the Iranians and the brave American soldiers with their bullets pinging on the pavement in front of them. And then we have this one, Unalive on the Steppes. Yes, I have to be careful about that. The Russian Civil War was the Russian Civil War was designed to simulate chaotic conditions in Russia in 1917. Players can get points for attacking their own units. You gotta love it. This one, which I am so glad we're not co-hosting tonight with Kyle, this would send him into a paroxysm of rage. 3 tons, 16K kilobytes. The computers described for the distant future and Traveler are not as efficient as some which currently exist. Watery Doom. The counters for Titan are printed with water-soluble ink. A spilled Coke can wipe out an entire army. Okay, look, SJG of 40 years ago. To be fair, if you spilled a Coke on any company's cardboard counters for a chit and hex game from the 1980s, it would pretty much be ruined anyway, regardless of the ink. Nomad Gods was one of the precursors for RuneQuest. I didn't know that, Jimmy. Thank you. Here we go, folks. Reproduction problem. Star Patrol includes the following. Sex. This table is not usually necessary, as sex would hardly ever crop up in a game. As it shouldn't. As it shouldn't. You bunch of degenerates. Harmonious Feet and Skull and Crossbones, which I think was a Yaquinto game, but don't quote me on that. In Skull and Crossbones, a kick is about as dangerous as a sword blow. Well... Sonar silliness. In Torpedo Fire, the convoy player has about a 20% chance of a false sighting per minute. That averages out to 300 false sightings per day. That's rough. Shallows of Space. Ships in interplanetary space have a stacking limit of 1, according to the designers of the game Diadem. I've never heard of that one. Oh, this is a great one. This is a classic. You should have seen the one that got away. Original D&D gives a % in liar for each monster listed. That's a typographical error. The correct word is lair. However, the creators of the Arduin Grimoire, in imitating D&D, gave a % liar for all their monsters. And yes, they did. I have okay. So over here in the left-hand corner, sizzling simulations. Let's zoom in on that. I have seen this on the box. NATO, it is a game by GDW. NATO includes the following. To simulate the use of strategic nuclear weapons, simply soak the map with lighter fluid and apply a flame. They are that serious about, look, if you really want nuclear weapons in your game, yeah, here's what you do. Start lobbing around strategic nukes, and you might as well do that. And then we have this one, Bootlegger Reverse, Mr. Sulu. Sulu, Bootlegger Reverse. A starship can go from warp 6 to a dead stop simply by turning around, according to the Starfleet Battle Manual. Oh, how many of us have ever played a play-by-mail RPG back in the day? Promises. The moderator of the play-by-mail game Lords of Valicia considers the game active, though few, if any, turns have been processed in the last 3 years. Shame. You guys enjoying this? I hope. There's plenty of you sticking around, and I'm going to keep doing it till time to be done. Now, I have never heard of this one. Also, is anyone good at Russian, and does that sign on the wall over here actually say anything? Starship Troopers in Moscow. Objective Moscow, a near future game, includes such units as American shuttlecraft Marines, cruise missile brigades, and Japanese samurai divisions. And you've got drop troops with katanas and a babushka who looks thoroughly unimpressed. Dwarves on motorcycles. The combat and movement factors in Lords of Underearth are reversed. Taken literally, the rules would allow some units to move across the map and back in a single turn. And I actually have Dragons of Underearth. Lords of Underearth is rare. They didn't make a bunch of those. If you see it floating around out there, it's very expensive. If you find a copy intact in a used bookstore for cheap, snap it up. This was a fun one. I remember this one from playing Wizardry when I should have been teaching myself Pascal in middle school on the Apple IIs. Going out for a few beers. In Wizardry, a dead character can join the rest of the party at the end, and of course, we have everybody sort of, But yes, you can bring a dead body with you to the tavern to stack equipment in and that sort of thing. Generic weapons. In Adventures in Fantasy, all weapons do 1d6 damage. So they do in original D&D also. Well, I mean, there's 23 of you out there watching this, enjoying this, so... my favorite one of all. One day I will own you, one day I will possess you, realm of Yolmi, one day. Wart birds and pistol frogs. The realm of Yolmi probably has the most creative monster list of any fantasy game. Examples: Ratif, small birds that think the world is too beautiful. They spray spores, which in one turn will give adventurers warts. Parsep. Initially, this appears to be a parachutist crying for help, but when touched, it mutates into a frog-like creature with a fully loaded Saturday night special. Fam. Robots formed in the shape of an arm and a hand. They will attempt to throttle all those not similar to them. Ipinu. Gorilla-furred creatures which have no teeth. Their only purpose in life is to get one of their legs behind their neck. How could you not love that? How could you not want to play an RPG like that? Or at least own it to read it? And we have some great looking art there. And our beleaguered sci-fi adventurer running away who has a rather World War I flying hat with some sci-fi accoutrement stuck on it there. One day I'll own you, Realm of Yolmi. This is okay. All you RuneQuest fans, brace yourselves. Humor is coming. This is true. This is objectively true. RuleQuest. Character creation in RuneQuest involves over 100 steps. It can take a novice 2 or 3 hours. Space opera characters can take twice that long. It's true. Wart birds and pistol frogs should be both, Jimmy. See, where else do you guys get this kind of in-depth, obscure corner of the globe classic RPG content? Nowhere. Nowhere. After this video, search YouTube for Murphy's Rules RPG product, Steve Jackson Games. You're not going to find it unless you find an old video where I mentioned it. Rats, slimes, and children are listed under nuisance creatures in the fantasy trip. You have a little cherubic fellow there saying, Dad, let's go up a level. Oh, here's a population funny. The triplets of Crane. In the tribes of Crane, a tribe's population can increase up to 10% a month, a figure which only makes sense if every female is constantly pregnant with triplets. Now, this is something, okay, so this is one of those that is directly addressed in the AD&D rules. I think Gary took a little bit of umbrage to this. But I don't think TSR is the company that got hateful with them. It's a rather snarky-looking fellow. Take that, and that, and that. It takes about 10 blows with a battle axe to slay a medium-high level D&D fighter, even if he's wearing no armor. In addition, in basic D&D, for example, 10 such blows would take more than a minute and a half to accomplish. Pain in the anterior region, Robert, is what PETA stands for. Stopwatch battles. Each turn in Starfleet battles works out to 1/30th of a second. During this time, a ship can maneuver, fire all weapons, and send out a boarding party. Hernioptera. In Chiton, a single hymenopterian worker can carry up to 30 dead comrades back to the hive. Never heard of that game. Actually, that's not true. I've heard of it. I just don't care about it. This is an industry in joke from the time that just does nothing for me. The names of Freedom in the Galaxy characters are anagrams for the names of SPI employees. You guys took them to task and you didn't look at anything in D&D? Everything in there is Gary's friends' names or his name. Hit points are silly, yeah, but I don't care. Diapers and Dragons? In original D&D, you could have a player character Balrog so long as you started with a young one, and that's true. The engines cannot take it, Captain. The Federation Space Designers Notes mentions that the movement factors exceed the maximum speed of any ship as given in Starfleet battles by a considerable margin. This is because even at its emergency speed of Warp 7, it would take the Federation's heavy cruiser 50 years to reach the Klingon border. I know you did. I know you did. It's okay. We'll find it someday. I remember this game. I remember trying to play this game, and this is true. We will fight them on the sofas. We will fight them on the tables. In Battle of Britain, players must keep individual track of every airplane that fought in that battle. That's what friends are for. In Car Wars, a character... Now, to be fair, Car Wars is not an RPG, and by character, we're talking about a driver. Like, it later kind of sort of oozed over into GURPS a little bit, but it's not. Anyway, But anyway, in Car Wars, a character cannot commit unalive with a 44 Magnum. Heavy handguns do 2 points of damage, which will knock someone unconscious, and if he's unconscious, the distraught soul can't try again. West Side Melee. In the section of other weapons in the fantasy trip are such fantasy favorites as the baseball bat and bicycle chain. Arrayed on the field at dawn, the Sharks to the east, the Jets to the west. Unalive is painless. In Champions, the average man can walk away from a 3-story fall and has a better than even chance of surviving a 10-story plummet. It does. Champions gets a little weird in the corners of the envelope. As long as you stay in the center, everything makes sense. And then we have a this poor hero watching people just jumping off the building. In original D&D, some swords had the ability to detect meal and what kind. It means metal. I think there's one over here. Yeah, the USS Mount St. Helens. In alien space, their fighting spacecraft shoot magma at one another. Because, it's going to stay hot in space, right? And now we get to Ben Sargent's cartoons. Flying Buffalo's Berserker features a giant robot ship 3 times the size of Earth. It may contain a maximum of 18 robots, each of which is roughly equal to 1 man in combat. And you've got Spartans going after this shrinking violet of a robot. I have been a victim of this, and it pissed me off and still pisses me off to these days. In a combat between a man armed with a rapier and one using a dagger and Yaquinto's swashbuckler, you have a 1 in 6 chance of the dagger breaking. That's not the one I thought it was, but that is a pretty funny cartoon. There's an old computer bug here. In Ace of Aces by Nova, 2 planes on a collision course simply pass through each other. Guerrilla units in SPI's Minuteman are designated by code names such as Spock, Mafia, Deep Throat, and Batman. Now this is a weird one. I don't know that this one is true. The map scale of a hex in TSR's Gamma World is given as roughly 43.7 kilometers. This unusual value converts neatly to the useful amount of 27.3 miles. That seems fair. In FBI's Nuclear War, the owner of the game always deals and plays first. To be fair, Nuclear War, which is arguably one of the first ever tabletop games to simulate nuclear war, because it goes back to, the mid-1960s. It is an extremely tongue-in-cheek game. It is an extremely tongue-in-cheek game. It's not meant to be serious. Spitballs aren't covered. All guns do the same amount of damage in FGU's Merc. Thus, a BB is as effective as a 45 slug. One of my favorites, my players know and fear this. Zap, you're dead. The Blash, a carnivorous radioactive moth found in TSR's Gamma World, has only to swoop within 5 meters of someone to kill him instantly. Yeah, they're that radioactive. I hope this is putting a smile on everyone's face. In OSG's StarQuest, each player rolls a die at the beginning of the game. There's a 1 in 6 chance he will be destroyed before he starts. As I discovered over the years when I got my hands on a copy of this book, many of these games are meant to be just comedy games. So, hey, Luzoki. A legend in his own time, not only is Luzoki immortalized as a river in Avalon Hill's Blitzkrieg, he often appears as a monster in Flying Buffalo's computerized TNT dungeons. If you've been around the role-playing game industry for decades, Luzoki was the guy. Game Science Dice, he'd show up in a tuxedo and he was like a carnival barker selling Game Science Dice. Very highly regarded. In the 5th edition of FBI's Tunnels and Trolls, an average man may take 10-second sprints topping 60 miles an hour. An exceptional runner could sprint at 118 miles an hour. In full plate, no less. He can't even make cutting remarks. An expert with daggers in Dragon's Quest does not necessarily know how to use knives. Oh my gosh, there's a poor guy. Oh damn, trying to cut an apple. He's covered with daggers. Manual insertion. In TSR's Vampire, one of the weapons provided to fight off Dracula's legions is a silver bullet used for killing werewolves. But on page 16 of the rulebook, it is stated that a gun is not needed to use this item. What else do we got here? I love the nightlife in SJ Games Undead. Being up 1 hour after dark, or sunup as the case may be, constitutes an all-nighter. Lush profits. Metagaming's In the Labyrinth states that a full 1 liter wineskin costs $2, but an empty one costs $3. You receive a $1 profit for downing a liter of wine. Kanek, you wanna get in on that? Play a little In the Labyrinth. It's the stopping for tea that does it. Britain's heroic defenders in TFG's War of the Worlds march to the battle at 4 miles a day. Cavalry, on the other hand, moves at a breakneck 5 miles a day. Crawling to the attack. In Metagaming's The Fantasy Trip, a direwolf carrying a goblin and fighting accoutrement moves about as swiftly as a human fighter in full plate. I love that illustration too. Bootlegger Reverse. A real-life bootlegger in SJ Steve Jackson Games Car Wars, assuming a standard tire, will generally blow out at least one tire when a bootlegger reverse is performed. There he is, changing his tire while the state trooper or highway patrolman stares and writes his ticket. This one got big laughs last week. Maybe more if it's loaded. A cannon fired at short range into a target in TSR's Advanced Dungeons & Dragons does 3 to 12 points of damage. Enough to kill the average first-level fighter, but not enough to make an experienced one stumble. A player who has become probably with a pound of flesh. A player who has become an expert at Yaquinto's man, myth, and magic may choose to become a sage. A sage is not permitted to tell his fellow players any game rules or statistics. They have to pay him for the information. This one is fun because I've seen this in the rules. I wish we had more original Star Trek fans in the audience. What We Do in the Shadows is amazing, by the way. Does Dr. McCoy know? Foss's Star Trek the Role-Playing Game describes the Klingon Agonizer as a handheld device applied to the left shoulder, just above where the ear is located in humans. Maybe that's why the Klingon hand agonizer was not successful. And we have our ridiculously short amount of time in Car Wars turns cartoon there. Now, this is a classic. I want the game just for this. Card-carrying confusion. From Schubel and Sons, Catacombs of Chaos comes this word. If the card reader cannot read your card, we will take a look at it to see if we know you're trying to do. If, despite everything, we or the computer cannot understand your action, you will receive a notice on your turn result that your character is confused. In GDW's Traveler, a naval officer retiring after 7 terms with the rank of admiral receives exactly the same pension as one who retires after 7 terms with the rank of ensign. Military retirement is hell. Health hazards. In Star Trek, the role-playing game by FASA, the healthier you are, the faster you become sick. Don't it feel like that sometimes, though? Tritax FTL 2448 reveals that a ship's sensors have a 1% chance of failing to detect a giant gas planet 300 feet away. The chance rises to 11% if you don't know what you're looking for. Sir, I swear we could find Jupiter if it wasn't for this big yellow ball. All right, keep looking. Reptile men and metagaming's fantasy trip do more damage with their tails than dragons do with theirs. And he's got a Saturday night special. Bad management. In Schubel and Sons Star Venture, starships will blast off for any destination, regardless of whether or not they have enough food and fuel to survive the voyage. Yikes. One-shot medicine. Muse Software's Caverns of Freitag features a monster known as the Healer. To use the healer's power, you must chase him down and stand atop him. He will attack you while this is going on. As the act of healing, the character kills the healer. And just see a party running through a dungeon trying to catch this thing. I know it's a computer game. According to Chaosium's Troll Pack, trolls eat practically anything, including dwarves, elves, humans, trees, rocks, and beer. So it's the diet of the basic Wisconsinite. In SPI's, the creature that ate Sheboygan, a police unit can easily carry patrolmen and 8 civilians. Hey, let me tell you something. If I'm trying to get away from King Kong there, we'll double up. People can cram in. Not so clumsy or random as a blaster. The present-day Marine sword drill consists of little more than a salute. However, in GDW's Traveler, the Space Marines of the distant future are trained to use their cutlasses in combat. Oh, this one's hilarious. The robot's staring intently. How about if he's dead? In Task Force's boarding party, the rules explain for the heart of thinking that a human pretending to be unconscious may perform no other action while feigning unconsciousness. Guy's slowly crawling away. Think unconscious. Think unconscious. Microcomputer games TAC, Tactical Armor Command, tells us in the rulebook that destroying an infantry unit will kill the crew. Fair enough. In the actual game, though, the infantry unit does not die. Fall down, you're dead. Am not. R2, am not. High-tech targeting. Dwarf Star's Grav armor features laser firing units that are not affected by terrain between themselves and their targets. They can fire 60 miles over any terrain. He's got a little Blamination Power Company again. I may be stupid, but I ain't lost. In Dwarf Star's Barbarian Prince, a player can remain lost for weeks in farmland. Presumably, the prince is either too proud to ask directions from the locals, or they are incapable of providing any. If you've ever been lost in the sticks, you know how true that can be, or even the burbs, and I live in the burbs. Top Secret by TSR Hobbies lists the termite bomb as one of the equipment items secret agents can use. Thermite is a little more deadly, but at least they have the bugs under control. There's an agent putting paid to an insect there. Hey, we got 23 folks watching. Thank you all. Try using a trash can lid. Metagaming's The Fantasy Trip system tells us that the largest shield available can only stop 3 points of damage. This means that someone armed with a sling stands a decent chance of penetrating the shield and injuring the shield user. Grandmaster of Flower Arrangements, one of my favorite gentle pokes as far as typos go. In Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, First Edition Player's Handbook, monks are described as monastic aesthetics. While monks probably do have a fine appreciation of beauty, it is more likely that the intended description was monastic ascetics. So think about that the next time you're playing a monk in AD&D. We'll do a few more of these. We're kind of getting on into 9 o'clock. In Avalon Hill's Starship Troopers, the Terran players' units cannot distinguish between tanks and infantry at a distance of 1 mile. Presumably, they're not allowed to use the snoopers in their power suits unless they get beaten by their drill instructor. Take that! In Boot Hill, TSR, a small child or a little old lady can punch as effectively as the toughest wrangler. Quick Stop! In Car Wars, a car can go from 30 miles an hour to an instant stop with only 50% chance of skidding. That's anti-lock brakes for you right there, Steve-O. One of my favorite cartoons. In Yaquinta's Beachhead, a single Japanese commander has 4 times the firepower of a 10-man squad. Blast Away, the fastest spies in Hero Games espionage can load, fire until emptied, and reload their Uzi machine gun 3 times in 12 seconds. I think there's probably some marksmen who could do that. There's the Rune Quest gag about losing your arms. Another poke at D&D. Too drunk to die. In DSR's AD&D, an assassin would be defeating his purpose if he first intoxicated his victim with strong drink. For a greatly intoxicated character gains 3 hit points along with a 15% increase in morale. Although a greatly intoxicated character can't fight, so the assassin would be able to coup de grace him fairly easily. Look, Ma, no cuts. In Nova Game Design Shootout at the Saloon, characters can jump through as many windows as they like without getting so much as a scratch. Well, hey, that's just good movie logic. In Heritage Dwarf Star's Dragon Range, a Tyrannosaurus is listed as a minor monster. Yikes. Well, I guess when we're talking about dragons... This is one of those edge cases that I love, that when you look at the statistics, you're like, wait a minute, no, that's right. He's out of line, but he is right. In a 30-minute RuneQuest battle involving 600 armored experienced warriors using great axes, more than 150 men will decapitate themselves, and another 600 will chop off their own arms or legs. Triple time. An Avalon Hill squad leader, an infantryman carrying a flamethrower, can run 25 miles an hour along a road, providing a sergeant or other leader is encouraging him. 25 miles an hour. That's a bit quick. Oh, more Gamma World. Double protection. In TSR's Gamma World, an energy grenade does half damage if you use a shield or wear armor, but does full damage if you wear both. How is that fair? I think that's a misreading of the rules. I don't mean a misinterpretation. I think that's a misreading. Like that's not what's in the rule book. In Hero Games Champions, the probability of an average person being able to grab something off of a table, such as a soft drink bottle, is 25%. It took 3 people to come up with that. In Yaquinto's beachhead, infantry units using nothing more than small arms can pin a tank, preventing it from moving or firing. Somebody doesn't know about infantry swarm tactics, I see, if you think that's a little weird sounding. Patty, we'll see you around. I hope you had fun. Okay, this is the one that drove me up the wall because it's in the rules. The way you wave your hat. In Yaquinto's Swashbuckler, it is possible to be stunned longer if a hat is waved in your face than if you are hit with a beer mug, a thrown sword, a flip table, a chair, or are dropped from a height. It is absolutely true, and Jason, one of these days, I will get you for that. In RuneQuest, anytime a character asks God for divine intervention, there's a 1% chance that the god will kill him on the spot. Also true of D&D, although the percentages are different. In advanced melee and metagaming's The Fantasy Trick, the rules state a dead figure can take no action. So what else is new? Dragon? What dragon? In Heritage Dwarf Stars, Dragon Rages is possible to suffer no harm whatsoever if a dragon falls 200 feet and lands on you. Think about that the next time somebody starts complaining about the illogic of classic D&D and that there were better systems out at the time. People were doing it better almost immediately. No, they weren't. Wouldn't want any backfire. In TSR's AD&D, a 5th level magic user can throw a 20-foot radius fireball from as far away as 150 yards to as close as to where he's standing. Well, yeah, I mean, I can throw a baseball 150 yards or as close as where I'm standing. Maybe I can't throw it 150 yards, but you know what I'm saying. In Icarus Games Iron Horse, one can load and ship as many as many cattle on a flat car as one can in a stock car. Don't spend the money on stock cars. Why? Well, we'll just put the cows on flat cars. Won't they fly off? Nah. In Superworld by Chaosium, a normal man using normal strength uses no energy. He can punch all day without tiring. I think that Gamma World rule does need clarification. Here's another population one. Population increases by 5% a week in Universe 3, Central Texas Computing. This is only possible if every female is constantly pregnant with dodecatuplets, a litter of 12. Yikes. Stupid pop-up tools. Autopilot. In Star Commander, by Historical Concepts, a starship can fight at full strength even though it has 0 crew. We call those drones. People of 1988, we call those drones. We'll do one more page of these and then we'll wrap up for the evening. But do you guys want to keep doing the deep dive, funny haha read of Murphy's Rules? Like tomorrow night and so on. You let me know. Stand still. It takes more than 2 minutes and 24 bolts to kill a man at point blank range with a crossbow in TSR's Gamma World. Gary Larson for D&D. Yeah, it pretty much is. So one more page and then we'll call it a night. A sea serpent in Dragon Rage. Man, they've got it in for Dragon Rage. A sea serpent in Dragon Rage can destroy stone towers, but is unable to even damage a wooden bridge. In Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, any attempt to parry is automatically successful, and that is not true. That is absolutely not true. This gets under my bridge work, and I am going to bust chops on SJG. Here's how parrying works in AD&D. First of all, unless you have an exceptional strength where you get a bonus to hit, not a bonus to damage, but a bonus to hit, there's no point in trying to parry, because you subtract from your opponent's die roll your bonus to hit. So if you have a 17 strength, that's +1 to hit. Or is that +1 to hit? Let's say you have a +1 to hit, and you say, I'm going to parry this round. You subtract that +1 from their die roll, and it might succeed. There's no guarantee it'll succeed. So that's not true of Steve Jackson games. There's the one about Necromancer. You can order your troops to unalive. And here's one last one from TSR for the night. And I'll take about 1 million orcs. Troop selection in the Swords and Spells miniatures rules is done by point value. Orcs have a negative point value. It is possible to get an infinite number of them. There's a typo in one of the editions of Swords and Spells that puts a dash next to their point value, so it looks like they have a negative point value. So that's fun stuff. Do you guys, you guys want to keep on keeping on? We can go back to Murphy's Rules tomorrow night and look at some more of it, some more good non-TSR content, classic RPG content. We can do that. We can dive into it. I'll let you guys know. I'll do a short video. I'll do, just a live clip from my phone or something like that. If anything changes, but I don't know what is going to change. I don't know. I don't know, guys. But I do know this. There are two distinct directions you can go. You can go for a truly open gaming license, or you can go for the CGL, which is what WotC is now offering you. Don't sign anything. That's my opinion. Don't sign anything. Again, as for me, I'm going to keep playing and loving and promoting original D&D, basic D&D, and first edition advanced Dungeons and Dragons. But whatever D&D you play, as of right now, you're playing an OSR D&D. If you look at this mess that Wizards of the Coast is making of everything, and it's like T-Shirted Historian said earlier, and I thank you for pointing this out, they have wrecked themselves from a PR standpoint. If they release a statement tomorrow that says, we're sorry, we're not doing OGL 1.1, they have still done massive harm to themselves. So, there you go. As for me, well, I'm going to dip out of here, guys. It's been a lot of fun tonight talking about things. Hopefully, I gave you guys a little bit of sunshine with a reading from the Murphy's Rules. I would like to say, if you're new to the channel and you like this kind of video, please give it a like. If you're just stopping by, if the algorithm sent you here and you haven't subscribed, please click the subscription button, click the bell icon for notifications. That really, really helps things. If you want to support us, we are on Patreon. We are on Subscribestar. They're all down there. The crab's pointing at them for you. And you can drop us a tip on PayPal or via Buy Me a Coffee. So if you want to do those things, I greatly appreciate it. I really do. You guys have an absolutely lovely evening. Just have a wonderful time. I'm going to go get a cold beer, and then I'm going to get ready to play some first edition Advanced Dungeons & Dragons with some buddies of mine. So peace, everyone. Be good to each other.
Have you seen my owl bear? Here's to all the weirdos everywhere in the woods and in the air. Have you seen my owl bear? Should I shave off all my hair? Bobs are all around. Some live in tunnels underground. Some are fat, some are rich, some are sleeping in a ditch. Can you ride a crooked horse without a saddle way off course? Naked as a toad, all the way to Smoky Joe's. Have you seen the little creep driving fast in his little green Jeep? He smells like fish and brandy, but his rotten teeth look dandy. Take me to the show, I don't care if fast or slow. From action flicks to dancing dicks, just take me to the show.